I think the 7 saw is the best short action standard bolt face cartridge that we can use right now. That's my opinion. And if you disagree, I'd love to hear it. But I've shot so much of this. I love this round. And the main thing, if you can control the recoil on a 6.5 Creedmoor very efficiently, you can shoot a 7 saw very well. The recoil difference is negligible, but you're going to have a heavier bullet, a bigger diameter bullet, and a better BC bullet, and you're going to be running them faster. It's a win 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 over everything, and I absolutely love it. It's I That's why I run it in PRS, NRL. I hunt with it. It's fantastic.
Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to Red, White, and Moose, the show dedicated to the relentless pursuit of excellence, whether it's behind a trigger, in a competition, or just in our everyday lives. Everything we do demands precision. Guys, I hope everyone's getting amped for Christmas. I can't freaking believe it's next week. Absolutely nuts. But I hope everyone's been having fun, been hanging out with family, getting ready to see family. I'm definitely looking forward to it. We've already had one Christmas, and about to get into a bunch more of them. But yeah, it's and we've been talking a little bit about some of the bow stuff, and I've been way deep down that rabbit hole. Been staying up way too late and just researching stuff. And so I touched on it a little bit on a previous episode, but like I had a bow. I think I sold it like 6 or 7 years ago, something like that. And I didn't really get like super down deep into like the technical side of things when I was shooting it. I just shot the shit out of it and just I had a lot of fun and got decent with it. But now getting back into it, definitely going down the rabbit hole and going to be changing up and changing up parts and getting into different builds and arrow setups and essentially everything I'm doing with the rifles, and just going way deep into it. So really been enjoying learning about it and some of the stuff that's new since I had the bows, and it's so cool. Like the new technology is sick. But got everything picked out, got a bow reserved, so I'm getting the Matthews Arc 34 lefty. That was the problem, was finding a left-handed model. Story of my life is kind of why I got into custom rifles, because especially at the time the left-handed option sucked. Now getting into bows, I'm realizing very quickly it's the same or worse. At least everybody makes a left-handed version, but just finding them is tough. But got the Arc 34, and let's see, we're gonna do got the UV slider, the Matthews UV bridge lock slider, a 3 pin. I am excited to try it out. I do really want to get the dialed sight, but their 3 pin adjustable isn't available right now. It's going to be a little bit, so going with the UV slider for now. I think it looks like a great sight. Definitely excited to try it out. Then doing the QAD, the Matthews QAD integrate rest. Um, I want to try the Hamskea R7, but again, the lefties aren't available yet. It sounds like it's gonna be a little bit. So, and I did want to do some like, and this is how y'all will kind of see how I approach all the stuff with guns. But I like trying out different stuff. So I'm excited to get a cable driven rest first, and then to try a limb driven rest. So I'll kind of be messing around with a couple of those, or trying out the different styles. And then got the 15-inch down angled front bar and 10-inch rear bar. Gonna do the Matthews quick detach quiver. Trying to think if there's anything. I think that's about the the build list. My release just came in. I went with the Evolution Outdoors Ibex. It's a hinge release. I mentioned I talked to Ryan. Ryan's been such a huge help. One of the only other people I've met that like truly deep dives into like the overly technical side of things like I do, and he's already done it in archery, so and still still doing it. So but he's the one that turned me on to that release. I hadn't shot a hinge in the past. I'm glad I got it. I've been messing around with and kind of practicing with it a little bit. I think I'm going to like it. I can definitely tell it's going to take some practice to just get used to shooting that style of release. But I do think I think it's going to be good. And I'll get some others. Just, I want to I want to try all the different, styles that are out there, but I think I'm gonna start with this one. And I got the brass one. I like the heavier. It feels good in my hand so far. So then I'm gonna get some arrows built. So we're going down to at the time I'm recording this. We're going down to archery country in Austin in a couple of days, and that's where I've got my bow reserved. They've been honestly really great to deal with so far, and they had lefty insight, and honestly their inventory was kind of nuts when I called, but they've got a few things. I got a 36-inch predator target. There's kind of it's been kind of a shit show getting all this stuff put together because I need it. Like I wanted to get the bow now and get shooting and get, you know, kind of get my feet back underneath me shooting the bow, and finding everything available with the new release has been tough, but it's all coming together. So we're going to pick up the bow in a couple of days, and we'll get it set up and tuned and everything, minus a couple of parts that are still coming in from Matthews. But those will be in soon. But yeah, I'm freaking amped. And so I've really been wanting to, I knew when I got rid of the last bow that I would eventually get back into it. I'm definitely looking forward to getting back into it. Let me know what y'all think, or if you have questions, or if you've kind of been thinking about getting into bows. But I'm going to be kind of taking y'all along for everything, and what I'm learning, and then kind of how I approach like something that I'm going to way go down the rabbit hole on. So I'm excited about it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So let me know what y'all think of the archery stuff. But before we get into the episode, this episode is brought to you by Alpha Munitions, Lone Peak, Collis Foundation, Hawkins Precision, West Texas Ordnance, Raven Rifles, and Botnia Solutions. Guys, check them out. I love you guys. Thank you so much. And before we get into the episode, a word from these partners. This show is partnered with Botnia Solutions. Botnia makes the most high-performing muzzle brakes on the market. They've got a low dust signature, so you're not getting the crap beat out of you when you're shooting prone. They've got upward-facing ports to help drive the rifle down when you're shooting positional and be able to see more through your scope. I love them. I've been running the MIDI on my hunting rifles and my NRL Hunter setup and couldn't be happier with it. And then when I need the most, I put the Maxi. I've got that on my PRS rifle. And when you need all of the recoil control that you can possibly get, look no further than Botnia Solutions. This show is partnered with Collis. Collis is the world's oldest successful rifle scope manufacturer, so it's no surprise with that many years of experience, they've released their game-changing lineup. The K328i and the K540i truly are game changers. With a 40% wider field of view, they make a huge difference in competition and in the field. I love the DLR models with the easy-to-read elevation turrets, and they've got top-tier glass that provides the ultimate color and clarity. When you're ready to be at the top of your game, you need a game-changing scope from Collis. Check out the K328 and K540i. This episode is brought to you by West Texas Ordnance. West Texas Ordnance is a full-service custom rifle shop, and that full-service custom rifle shop is located on a 2,500-yard shooting range. It doesn't get any cooler than that. They cut all of my barrels for my hunting rifles, competition rifles, test barrels, and they are all absolute hammers. Check out their patented switch-leg system for easy, repeatable barrel swaps, or the saw line of cartridges now including the 7 saw, 22 saw, and 25 saw. From their signature series of rifles all the way to their full custom rifles, they've got you covered. Next time you get a rifle going, check out West Texas Ordnance. This show is partnered with Hawkins Precision. Hawkins makes precision rifle hunting components built to help you go further and shoot farther. From lightweight hunting rings to heavy tactical rings to hunter bottom metals and flush magazines, they've got you covered. I run Hawkins on all of my rifles. I've got their ultralight rings, their heavy tack rings, the cantilever mount, one-piece mount for PRS, their M5 bottom metal, hunter bottom metals. I absolutely love it. I run them on everything. Next time you're getting a rifle going, make sure you finish it out with Hawkins Precision. Alpha Munitions sets the gold standard for rifle brass. Their OCD technology has been the first improvement for rifle brass in decades. I use it for hunting, competing. I use it in the business. Honestly, it's just the easy button for getting your ammo to shoot good. If you're looking to get the most out of your ammo or you want to lower your SDs, make sure you start out your ammo with a good foundation and use good quality brass. Find out why more top competitors are using Alpha Munitions brass in the PRS than any other brand. Next time you're getting your ammo started, make sure you start it out with Alpha Munitions brass. This episode is brought to you by Lone Peak Arms. Lone Peak makes absolutely amazing competition and hunting actions. Their Razor Infusion line is available in short and long action, left or right, and stainless or titanium.
I've been running Lone Peaks for years, and I've run them in snowy, muddy, sandy conditions, and they just keep on ticking. Your action is the heart of your rifle, and make sure you're starting it off strong. Next rifle you get going, make sure you start it out with a Lone Peak action. This episode is brought to you by Foundation Stocks. I've been using Foundation's micarta line of stocks for years, and now with their new hybrid line combining micarta, carbon fiber, and Kevlar, you get that dead recoil impulse that their competition stocks have been known for, now in a lightweight hunting rifle that's light enough to take into the woods. I've been running their Centurion and Samson and Revelation, and now I have their Ezekiel and Gideon stocks, and I absolutely love them. Feel less and see more with Foundation stocks. This show is partnered with Raven Rifles. Raven Rifles produces artwork that shoots. Their custom Lurk Cerakote pattern provides depth and colors that honestly most patterns just dream of. Their limited release rifles are truly a work of art. They're available in limited numbers and guaranteed to be an eye catcher. I absolutely love the Lurk pattern. You can see the Snow Wolf and Copperhead patterns on the rifles behind me. They just truly become functional works of art. When you're looking to stand out above the rest, check out Raven Rifles.
All right, so getting into the episode. So this it's the winter. It's hunting season's coming to an end, competition season's over, people are kind of getting geared up for next year, and I've been helping a lot of people build out different rifles. And I've been answering a bunch of questions on, getting new barrels done and setups and, all that fun stuff. And I thought it would be a really good time. Now's the time, I think, if you're looking at getting a new rifle built. I mean, today is the only better time than yesterday, but because custom and we're mainly going to be going over custom rifles, and or if you're not into custom rifles, it's something that you can take into account for factory rifles and what what features you're looking for and kind of how. And it's how I go through, what I want out of that rifle, and then the thought process of going into picking all of the components and what I want out of them. So hopefully it'll kind of help you. And we're going to go over 3 different rifles for 3 very different setups and kind of where the thought went with all of that. So obviously we've got partners with the show, and if for those that haven't figured it out, so I own a ton of stuff between with competing and hunting and the business. I own and use a ton of stuff, and so you'll see a bunch of stuff here that is from the partners of the show, and some of it that's not. And it's the partners, like I love, like they're my go-tos. It doesn't mean that's the only good product out there, but it's my favorites and what I like to go to. But you'll see kind of a mix of everything and kind of where the thought process is between picking everything. So the first thing, and people will 2 times this has happened in the last like week and a half, and hey, I'm getting a new rifle build. What do you think I should go with? My first question is, what are you using it for? That is one, and I mean, and I know we're going very basic with that, but like, okay, if it's a hunting rifle, what are you hunting? Are you hunting whitetail? Are you hunting coyotes? Are you hunting elk? And, so it's going to determine, we need to determine a very specific use case for that rifle. And if you're doing a do anything rifle, that's kind of a different, a different category. These are very like dedicated rifles. So let me know if you would be interested in that. But so determining what it's used for, whether it's competition, PRS, NRL, or if a specific type of hunting or something like that, and that'll really help us determine like what weight range we need to be in and what cartridges we're looking at and barrel lengths and some things like that, and then what accessories we're going to need to put on it, and what it's going to require. And then the big thing, and I've been hammering on this a lot, but the weight, like there's a trade-off in my mind a lot of times between weight and performance. And a lot of the times when you give up weight, you're giving up performance, and when you to get both, it just costs a lot more is real. So if you're going to get something that performs really well and it's light, it's just going to cost more because of tolerances and machining and the materials that it's used. It is what it is. But that's where I really hammer on, like, so many of these people and marketing and shit that's out is all, ultra light, da 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 da, and there's trade-offs to it. So, and the biggest thing is stability and capabilities in my mind. So let me grab this first rifle. Okay, so this one, this I'm in love with this rifle. So this I set it up essentially as like a lightweight coyote rig or like truck gun, and so I'll be doing a lot of like coyote and that type of hunting with it. And then I wanted something for like if I go to the ranch, driving around, and just have it in the truck. So it's short, maneuverable, and I wanted it to be able to kill, coyotes, pigs, or I do want to take it deer hunting and some other things, but the main thing is going to be, light, maneuverable hunting type setup. So with that, I pretty much always hunt suppressed, and we'll kind of work from end to end, and why I chose it, and kind of all of that fun stuff. Right now, I've got a Thunder Beast Magnus. This was before I got this one before they started doing all the different links and everything, but this would be the Magnus L. It's the full size version. I love these Magnus cans. The extra diameter, so they're 1.8-inch diameter tubes versus like 1.5. And like what a lot of standard suppressors are, you just get a little bit more internal volume. They're quieter. And I do really like them. The mounting systems, I never have a problem with them shooting well, but I really like the Thunder Beast. I will say it's a little long. Honestly, I need more suppressors. That's one thing I don't have a ton of, but I need more. But I will say it balances pretty well with the way that this is set up. And so it's why I don't really hate the way that this is. But I will eventually be putting a shorter can on here when I get one. So then moving to the barrel. So it started as a CRB Hunter Profile 224 blank. I've talked about it before. I'm a big fan of CRB. Everything I've gotten so far has done well. This is a 1 in 7 twist, and so also it's a little different for. I will say it's a little different for me because I have to kind of set some things up for like ammo testing purposes that maybe not necessarily everybody will. So I set this up to be able to run and stabilize heavies. If you want to be able to run heavies, you need to take that into account for when you're setting it up. But this is a 1 in 7. It's chambered in 22 saw, which I'll get into here in a second. But it's cut to 16.5 inches. I did want something short because of like what I said. So definitely wanted it short and kind of being able to throw it around. So 16.5 inch. So the 22 saw, I wanted something because it is short and because, a lot of main thing was coyote hunting. I wanted something very flat. And so I was thinking, I instantly thought 22 Creed has, been exploding in popularity and for a good reason. I love the 22 Creed. 22 Saw, and for those that don't know, the Saw essentially has about 5% more case capacity than the Creedmoor. And so because of the short barrel, I went with the Saw. I've been running 7 Saw for a lot of different things. And so it just gets a little bit more speed. From what I've been talking to the WTO guys, it sounds like on average, like depending on like bullet selection and barrel setup, they're seeing anywhere from like 50 to 100 feet per second gain over a Creedmoor. So, pretty neat. I haven't got a ton of time with this one yet. I took it on that doe hunt a few weeks ago. But I'll be doing a bunch of different testing with different bullet setups with this. But I'll most likely end up in the 70-ish range. I really like the 75 ELDM out of the 22 Creed. It's done well. I think that might be kind of where I end up with this one, but I want to try like the 75 ELDMs, the 80 grain ELDMs. I do want to try a solid from Hammer, like maybe a 50 or 60 grain something, just to really get some speed up and with a fast twist. The monolithics don't really. I can spin the crap out of them, but the 22 saw I think is going to be pretty sweet. I was running the 60. We did a very quick workup, and I was running the 62 VTs at like 3380, I think is what it was. So very fast out of a tiny little setup. Then it's chambered by West Texas Ordnance. WTO does all of my barrels. It's just they just know what they're doing. That's a whole nother topic, but just the level of detail that they go into is just what has developed my trust in them. And so I'm also running a switch lug from them, and the switch lug it goes onto the front of your action, and it makes for essentially easy barrel changes without a barrel vise. You just all you need is a fix a sticks or a tool like a a wrench, you can loosen this bolt on the clamp, hand unthread your barrel, put a new one on, hand tighten it, torque this back down, you're good to go. So where I was talking to with one of my buddies that was looking at getting a rifle done, where I have a switch lug. I think I have one on all of my rifles except for my PRS rifle, and that's just because I don't change that very often. So where I like it is he has a few younger kids, and I had mentioned a 22 Creed, and I was like, the recoil is, very light for your kids for when they get into it. But the thing that's nice about the switch lug is like, so like, say he wanted to go on a bigger hunt that required something that he wanted bigger than a 22, instead of having to build a whole nother rifle or anything like that, you can just buy a new barrel and change calibers, and it's still in the same stock that you like, same, scope, everything like that. One, you get to stick with the setup that you like, but then it's going to save you a lot more money. And then if you truly wanted to go bigger, you could even grab a different bolt. And then, I was telling him, I was like, you could set up on the same, like the same rifle and run like a 22 Creed. And then when he wants to not upgrade, but upgrade in energy, he could do something like a 7 SAUM or a 300 WSM, do a barrel change and a bolt change, and you could kill anything from varmints to elk. And so the switch lug it just makes life easier. And then especially if you start getting a bunch of the same, a bunch of rifles with them and the same actions, then I start playing musical parts and switching barrels around onto other guns, and it just makes it nice. So I do really like the switch lug. Then moving back, so this one is an Impact 737. This was on my PRS rifle for a long time. Impacts are freaking great. And moving up from that, so I've got the Hawkins ultralight hunting rings. I love the ultralights. I am a big fan of their heavy tack rings because I do really like the diving board up front, mainly for hand shooting positional. But if you're running like a laser weapon mounted rangefinder, it's great for that. But if you need to save weight or you don't want the big diving board on that, these ultralights are fantastic. The one thing I in my opinion, you have to have a level on every rifle. You've got to have a level. You have to have a level. I'll say it one more time. You have to have a level if you're going to do any kind of distance shooting. And especially if you're like, I will say out here in West Texas, you can get away with not having a level on a lot of things because it's flat as shit out here. And so the horizon is flat. You start getting into the mountains and rolling hills or any kind of terrain, it's just way harder to get your rifle level in your optic than what you think is level. And so having something, it's a quick reference. You need to have that in your shot process, but having all the Hawkins rings have an option to have a level in them. I think it's a must. And it's nice because if you don't on these Hawkins, the way that they design it for these offset levels, if you don't have the diving board, it's a nice little thumb hook that you can hook around right there and get some pressure on for when you're shooting positional, and it's very nice. Then this one has the Collis K328 DLR. I have become a huge fan of these new Collis scopes, the 328 and the 540. The field of view is just bananas. Like it truly is insane how good the field of view is on these new models. Glass clarity, great. Turrets, great. Everything else. It's everything you would expect out of a top end optics manufacturer. But in my opinion, I do think the 328 and the 540 is a step above when you put everything together. And so I love this scope. And then so with the setup, the extra, the bigger field of view, coyote hunting, or throwing it out of like a ranger, shooting pigs, whatever. The extra field of view is fantastic. The glass is great. And honestly, I don't get way deep into the weeds of like, oh my god, these turrets feel so good, like so many like these people do on the internet and snipers hiding bullshit. But the turrets do feel really good. They're just very, very solid. The one thing I always, before I shot Colossus, I always thought this little parallax spinner wheel that they have on top was different and that I wouldn't like it. And when I got my first one, it was definitely just different. But now that I've gotten used to it, I actually do like it. So I don't want to I wouldn't say
in my mind that it's like better than having just a side parallax knob, but it's not a hindrance like I originally thought it would be. So, but I absolutely love this scope. Then coming down, so this is the Foundation Ezekiel. So I've been running foundations for a long time, and for quite a while, they all of their stocks were micarta, which has a lot of pros to it, but the con is it's heavy. And so, and like one of the rifles we'll go over here in a minute is one of their micarta hunting stocks, but it was one of those, at least at the time, if you wanted to run a foundation, you were just going to run a fairly heavy rifle. And there were certain scenarios that I thought that was okay, but in general, there were a lot of things that weight wise, they weren't hitting the mark. Now with the new hybrid line, I think they're freaking dope. There's this Ezekiel, and then they have the Gideon, which is very similar, except you don't have the night vision bridge, and you don't have an adjustable a cheek piece. I have one of those, and that rifle is just getting finished up. It should be done fairly soon. But so with the foundation, so the big reason I like foundation so much is the the feel and the comfort is great. I'm a big I don't think there's anything wrong with chassis. I am just personally a stock guy. I prefer the fit and feel of a stock personally. But the recoil impulse from that micarta is, in my opinion, is what truly one of the big things that separates a foundation is just the recoil impulse is more of a dead feel, and I always heard that forever before I owned a foundation, and it always frustrated me. I was like, what, like, yeah, but okay, I get it, but like, what do you mean by that? And it's just, and you kind of just have to shoot them to truly understand it. But it is just kind of a deadened, softened recoil impulse. It's just not there as much than it is with other materials, and I fell in love with it. And so now these new hybrid lines, they've got micarta bedding blocks so that they can keep that recoil impulse, and then they also precision inlet, for like depending on what action. So like this one's an impact, I've got tons of lone peaks, and so they can inlet it for that action, that bottom metal, all that fun stuff. But with the Ezekiel, I definitely prefer having the adjustable cheek piece. I got to get in because I wanted one and I wanted to try one out, but personally, I do like the adjustable cheek piece. I like how they did this. It's toolless. It comes with a spacer kit when you get it, and you literally can just pull this off. And so I pointed this out to someone. They're like, "Oh, well, I don't like that it just comes out and you don't have to push anything." I was like, "I actually love that it comes out, because if I needed to take my bolt out or and run like a cleaning rod, or whatever, for whatever reason, or I'm bore sighting or something, I don't have to have a tool to pull it out. And then I don't know where my freaking pen went. There it is. But then to put it back in, it's just essentially you shove something in here, and it just pushes apart, and then you pull it out. And so like you can literally use a bullet. And so like you can literally just grab one out of your mag, shove it in there, push it back in, you're good to go. So just I like that. I do like that system a lot. The grips. So the older foundations, like the Centurion and the Genesis, you could get the one of the bigger differences was the grip angle between the two, and then the fore-end size. But I personally prefer more of a vertical grip and a shorter trigger to grip distance, because I do kind of have shorter fingers. But and so when they introduced the Samson, which is their current PRS competition stock, they redid the ergonomics of the grips, and they introduced thumb shells into that one, and then they've carried that over into this one, and this grip is just one of the absolute most comfortable grips of any stock. And it's gonna be a lot of personal preference and things like that, depending on the size and shape of your hand. But I think I love the grip on this. It is for when you're touching it every time, with trigger, just carrying it around, holding it up or whatever. It's just such a comfortable grip. I absolutely love it. And then they have on this one, it's a flush mounted Arca rail, so it's flush with the bottom, and it's all skeletonized for weight savings and da 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 da. And then it has an option for a night vision bridge. I obviously put it on this one. I do like that a lot.
If you don't want it, if you're not ever going to run night vision, or you want to save weight, you can save some money and save some weight and not get the bridge on it. But I do really like how they did this bridge. So you can see on this side, I've got the mounting rail, but the way they did it on the bridge, there's mounting holes on either side. And so rather than having to, if you wanted to switch sides that this is on, rather than having to take the whole bridge out, flip it around and reinstall it, the bridge stays. You can just pull this and switch it over. I really like this bridge system. Yeah, so night vision bridge, and then obviously the big eye catcher. So the whole rifle's done. It's Cerakoted by Raven Rifles, and their lurk pattern. This is the Snow Wolf color. It's absolutely sick. To be honest, I'm itching for the day that it snows first, so I can get out and get some pictures of this thing in the snow. I think it's just going to be absolutely sick. But I love this color, how it turned out, and with all the matching metal parts, Cerakoted. I think it turned out absolutely freaking sick. And then moving forward, this is the Atlas PSR bipod, and I've got it on the Area 419. The only thing I don't like about the Area 419 Arca mount is the gold, but I know that's just their thing. I had it for one of my PRS guns, and it fits great on this. I will probably end up just spray painting that black or something because the gold drives me nuts, but that's kind of their thing. But the Arca mounts on your bipods are a must, and so if you haven't looked at Arca, so it's this knob right here, and I can just do like a quarter turn, loosen it. So now I can slide this bipod all the way up and down this rail. It lives, 99% of the time out here on the end. But say I wanted to shoot off of something short and I needed to, and still wanted to shoot, stable bag and bipod, I can shorten this up, half the length of what it's currently set at and still be able to shoot off of bipods. Or you can just rip it off if you don't need it or it's in the way or something like that. So Arca is the way that everything's moving, but it is really nice. And then the Atlas bipods that's the Atlas PSR is my go-to bipod in general. If I don't need more capabilities, then I go to the Skypods. The Skypods are great. They're on a couple of the guns that we'll go over. It's just they just cost a lot more. So, but for like a good, like what I would say generic bipod, and I don't mean Atlas is generic, I mean, but like a generic use bipod, these are super sturdy without being overly heavy, and they're freaking tanks. And the PSR has the legs don't rotate and spin, like if you load into it, which I don't even know why that's still available, but it is what it is. But yeah, the PSR is fantastic. Then coming down to the bottom of the stock, Hawkins. This is their standard M5 bottom metal. With this one, like, yes, it is a hunting rifle, but I knew I would be doing a lot of like coyote hunting or just like kind of out and about. So I figured a lot of positional. So I wanted to run standard 10 round AICS mags. And so I just went with the standard M5. Then this one, so I got two of these recently. It's my first time running these. I've been running a lot of Bix and Andy triggers over the last year and a half, but all of them had been the Tac Sports or Tac Sport Pro X or whatever. This is the Dakota, so it's essentially their hunting trigger. For those that are more familiar with trigger techs, it's kind of like the difference between the diamond and the special. I don't want to say it's like a cheaper trigger, but it is a less expensive trigger, and they don't have to do as much to be able to get it to do what it does at very light pull weights. So like these only go down to a pound, which for this type of setup, I'm totally fine with. I generally run much lighter triggers. So in my competition triggers, I generally run those at like 5 ounces, where these Dakotas, I just have them turned all the way down. I think we put the trigger pull gauge on them. I think they came out to like 13 or 14 ounces. So it came a little under a pound, which I was happy with. Personally, I would prefer closer like the 10 to 12 range. I mean, 13 is really close, so it's not a big deal. 10 or 11 is kind of more my sweet spot, but I definitely don't mind running heavier triggers for in hunting setup, mainly just for the cold. If I'm gonna have gloves, to be honest, I never shoot in gloves. I run lighter triggers, and I'm very in tune with the pressure. So if I ever wear gloves, I end up taking them off. But then if my hands are cold, running them a little heavier. So far so good. It is a good like crisp breaking triggers so far. So I think it's going to be a good option. So that's kind of the rundown of the setup. But then hopefully that kind of help explains like why I picked everything on this one too. So, running short, light, compact, quick caliber, twist is appropriate, scope's appropriate, capabilities, all that fun stuff. Okay, fun part of recording at the shop. UPS guy came by. So, but that's kind of how I walked through picking the parts and everything. And so we're gonna go through the other rifles, and then I'll get into like like steel barrels versus carbon fiber barrels, or like titanium actions versus stainless actions, and some things like that. But this kind of helps. Hopefully, that helps kind of explain the thought process and walkthrough of where these came through. So we'll move into the second one. Okay, number two. So this one, the thought process behind it was kind of a long range precision like hammer. Like I wanted just a good lay down, shoot far if I need to, and hunting rifle. So with that, it kind of changes some things. So weight was a big one. I didn't want this to be a heavy rifle, but I wanted it to what I would consider like a mid-weight rifle. So like I run this setup like for open. I've run it in open heavy for NRL Hunter, and then I took it hunting. This is the one I took with on the Aoudad hunt. But depending on mainly the bipod, but I think when I run this with the single pull, which is how I ran it in open heavy, I think it's like 14 and a half pounds. With this Atlas, it's definitely lighter. But with this one, like I said, I wanted it to be heavier so it was stable. And then the cartridge, so this is on a long action. So, and I'll get into the cartridge, but I have multiple other barrels that coordinate with this for the same kind of thought process. So again, starting at the end, another common thing. I got another Thunder Beast. This is the Ultra 7. I wanted, just kind of a small, shorter, lighter suppressor. This is a 6.5 can, if anybody cares. So I'm running, this is a 25.7 PRC. But I do, like I said, just I love the Thunder Beasts. They're good. This is the Armageddon Gear suppressor cover. I do really, really like these covers. I have one for the Magnus. It's just I didn't have it on. Yeah, I need mainly my OCD. All of them are multicam, and I didn't want to put a multicam suppressor cover on that Snow Wolf. So we're rocking the all black. But I do really like these suppressor covers. To be honest, I think they hold up very, very well. I think they're cut. They have them for all the different, or not all of them, but most popular suppressor models. Fun side story: at the World Championship match last year in Colorado, I took my Geisley 14.5 URGI upper on a full auto lower for like some of the international guys to shoot and some things like that. Kind of a fun, just like deal for everyone to shoot. And the guy that was running the machine gun for me, super appreciative of him helping me out. But I had a Surefire suppressor on it, and essentially it was just mag dump after mag dump after mag dump, and it was getting piss hot. And we were trying to find stuff to keep him from like burning his hands while he's like trying to load mags and handle and everything. And so I think we ended up pulling and I can't remember which of these covers, but we pulled one of the Armageddon Gear suppressor covers off one of the cans I had at that event and threw it over the hand guards to keep his hand from burning. And then it stayed on there for like another day and a half. And it kind of tore it up a little bit, but for like what all it went through, I was shocked at how well it held up. Especially, and so it wasn't on the cam, but just right at the front of the handguard, and just getting shit hot for a day and a half, and it held up. So it will hold up to your anything your hunting rifles will put at it. I'll say that. Then moving back, this one is also a CRB barrel. It's in their hunter profile. We'll get into profiles more too here in a little bit, but it can be just an overcomplication in my mind on a lot of things. As of right now, CRB is just making the hunter profile for like their lighter profile. It's not the lightest profile in the world, but I think it's a good balance. You save some weight where you need it. It's still a big enough diameter at the muzzle for like mounting a brake or a suppressor. And in general, steel will help balance your rifle out much easier than a carbon fiber barrel will. So I don't mind it. It's a 24-inch barrel, and like I said, it's chambered in 25.7 PRC. 25.7 PRC is a cartridge that West Texas Ordnance did. They wildcat a whole bunch of stuff, but they're my kind of wildcatters because, and I'm stealing this verbiage from Clayton. I'm not calling Clayton lazy, but he says they are lazy wildcatters, and that's my kind of wildcatting. They essentially neck up, neck down, small things to optimize, but still makes the loading process easy. So the 25/7 PRC is just a 7 PRC neck down to a 25 cal. So, it's been a lot of fun. It's just a freaking laser beam. I ran it in a match earlier this year. It did well, and then I took it on the Aoudad hunt. This right now I'm running the 133 burgers at like, I think it was like 3240 or 3250 or something like that. I think I can get a little more out of it when I get some time, but just a freaking laser beam, and carrying a very good high BC bullet, like the 133s. Like in the match I did the 138 A tips, but it's just, I think it's a very, very cool cartridge. I really want to take this on an antelope hunt. I think that would be pretty sick, but I am liking the 25/7. It's just a these fast hunting cartridges are just gaining my attention more and more and more and more. And so I'm really liking this one so far. Again, Chamber by West Texas Ordnance. It's got their switch leg on it again. And then this one is a Lone Peak Fusion long action. I like You'll notice ton of Lone Peaks. I love these actions. And to be honest, being a lefty, it's a lot easier to get left-handed actions out of them than most manufacturers, and as someone that's building a or not, I don't like, I'm not a gunsmith, but I build a decent amount of guns, and it's nice to be able to get actions when I need them, and being able to get them in all the different configurations that I need, so it is nice. And so the Fusion is their integral lug, integral rail action. I love it. They're just freaking tanks. And if y'all have been following along, like it'll be on the next gun, but I took a Lone Peak Titanium to the NRL finale this year, and it was in Arizona, and just freaking moon dust. And it just, that action was absolutely just coated in this fine dust, and just kept on trucking. Trigger didn't go down, didn't have any problems with the actions, binding up or anything, and it was a very common thing that we were seeing a lot of. So it's just, they've built a lot of trust. I've put them through a lot. So then going up from there, these are the Hawkins heavy tack rings that I was talking about. It does have the diving board on it. So if you run a rangefinder, and again, it's got the offset level, great for a thumb hook, and you've got this good deal to put your hand over if you're shooting positional or something like that. I do love it. Then this one, I've got the Leupold Mark V. So as of right now, I'll say Leupolds are my go-to if I'm not getting a Collis. So I do think the Collis is a decent step up over these in like glass quality and some things like that. But these Mark Fives are significantly less expensive, and I don't want to say they're cheap. They're $2,200, but the amount of scope that you're getting at that price point is insane. Like I thoroughly like this scope. I have a Mark IV coming for another. I've liked the Leupolds. If I'm not going to spend the money for a Collis, these are the ones that I like to end up on. I've really liked them. So then coming down from there, so this is the Foundation Revelation stock. So like I said, this was before they had the hybrid line. This is a full micarta stock. It's Cerakoted, so you can't see it, but this is a full micarta stock. So it is just heavier, but this is what I wanted for this setup. And so it's got a vertical grip, which I love. It's got a fairly short grip to trigger distance that I think is very fitting. And then to help reduce weight, the grip is hollowed out to save a lot of weight there. The palm swell on this thing is fantastic. I do like the entire grip overall better on these newer ones, but I do really like the palm swell fit on this. And so then moving forward, the fore end definitely gets narrower as it progresses down, and then it's also machined out on the sides, kind of a good little thumb groove, and it saves some weight. But just this is a great long range stock. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. So Like I said, this is a 25/7 PRC. Then I've also got a 7 PRC and a 300 PRC barrel for these, and I'll end up having more for this gun. But that was kind of the vibe for this gun is just good energy, a little bit bigger cartridges, and just be able to lay down and hit something at a pretty good ways away. So I've really liked this one, and it's still kind of got a sweet spot because I just went on a hunt with it. And then don't want to forget on the bottom. Oh man, I almost forgot a whole bunch of stuff. So again, Hawkins bottom metal, but this is the Hunter bottom metal, and so it doesn't have the barricade stop up here at the front, and then you can run their Hunter magazines, their Hunter flush fit magazines, which I really like. So it's these, and on the standard M5, it's got the standard mag release, and on the Hunter, it's got the button on the inside of the trigger guard. So it's nice. You can just like it when your hand is on the grip, you can just push forward on that, drop the mag. But these are all CNC mags. I mean they're freaking tanks for mags. It's kind of insane, but they're nice. But they've got like all the different sizes. So like these are the Magnum mags. They've got them for like 308 Normas and all that fun stuff. But yeah, it just makes for a nice flush fit mag. I will say they make, and I always butcher the pronunciation of this because I'm kind of an idiot sometimes, but that like Obendorf or Obendorf or however the hell you say it, bottom metals, the hinge plate systems. I don't have any guns with those personally. Just I like mags. It's just too easy to carry an extra mag or something like that. Where like on those, if you're going to hold 3 or 4 rounds, in a hinge plate system, you're going to hold the same amount 3 or 4 rounds with like one of these Hunter mags, but you can carry an extra mag with you in your backpack. Or like I use this Armageddon gear bino harness, and it's got little pockets on either side of the main bino compartment, and one of these fits perfect in it. And so I can keep an extra mag with me just for whatever case if I need it. So it's not like 100% flush to the bottom of the stock, but then when you run a rail or anything like that, like most modern rifles, then it becomes, then it is flush. So then on the bottom of this, I've got foundation short Arca rails so I can mount it on a tripod. And then up here, I've got a small Picatinny rail and they've got their Anschutz rail here on the bottom. Got the Picatinny rail mounted on that, mainly just to keep it small. I do love having the full Arca rails, but because this foreign does taper down quite a bit at the front, I didn't want it running wider than the stock, so running the thin Picatinny rail up here, and then you can position it any way you want along this Anschutz rail, but I have it down here at the end. And then just like the last one, I've got another Atlas PSR bipod, but this one is on a Really Right Stuff Arca mount. To be honest, this is my favorite Arca mount for attachments. It's got a quick throw lever. You can flip it halfway, and on an Arca, well, here, I'll just put it on the Arca rail here. So when it's closed, it's locked. If you flip it halfway, it slides up and down, but won't come off. And then if you flip it all the way, it just comes off. Makes it very nice and easy. And then this Really Right Stuff mount, I can mount it on an Arca or a Picatinny, just like I did, and it makes it very, very nice. So that's this setup. And again, the thought process behind how I wanted to set this one up. And this one, sorry, I actually can't remember off the top of it. So this is a 7.5 twist barrel. This one, I'll pretty much exclusively be shooting heavy stuff in it because one, the 25 cal bullet options are getting better, but it's still not just fantastic in regards to being able to find like good options across all weight ranges. The heavies has definitely come in really strong, like with the 133 Burger Hunters, the 134 ELDMs, the 135 long range hybrids, the 138 A-tips. I mean, there's a lot of really good heavy options now. And like some like Hammer, I know has like a one. I think it's going up to like a 125. I may try like a one. I think they also have like a 110 or 115, something like that. I want to try a couple things with that. But yeah, so this one I didn't. I wanted just a good long range, more of a powerhouse setup. So I wanted a longer barrel. Like all of the barrels for this setup, all the others they're all 24s, 24s or 26s, uh, and then a little bit heavier weight. And so it's just this thing is freaking rock solid when you get behind it. I mean, it is fantastic. So that's that gun, and then we'll grab this third one. Okay, this one is fun in my opinion. This has been my NRL open light setup. Okay. And I have a ton of time behind this gun, and I've got a few different setups that I've run with it. But
this is the main way that it's lived for the last couple of years. So we'll here, I'm gonna, because I will say this triple pull, I mean, we'll get into it, but it is kind of a bitch to get around. So starting on the end, you'll notice I don't have anything on it. I normally run the Botnia MIDI on this, but I have it on a customer's rifle right now that I'm getting ready to do load development on. But I run the Botnia MIDI. I went with the MIDI just because it's a hair lighter than the Maxi, and still a ton of performance. So the Maxi is just a little bit bigger version. That's the one that I have on my PRS rifle. If weight's not really a concern and you need all the recoil control, the Maxi's freaking tits. It's the best. But I run the MIDI on here. To be honest, and you can pull the specs on their website, but I think it's, I don't know, 5 to 10% smaller. Like, it's not much. But so with this being a competition setup, you know, everything had to be taken into account, and weight is kind of the big driving force with open light and open heavy. For those that don't know, open light and open heavy in NRL, it's the way it's open, so there's no restrictions on what gear you can use, but except for weight. So everything on it's rifle and everything has to be 12 pounds and under for open light, 16 for open heavy. So I needed to build this rifle as light as I could, because I knew all the accessories that I was going to put on it were really heavy relatively, but I wanted them for the functionality that NRL requires. So the MIDI, absolutely, I truly believe the Botnias are the best brakes on the market at reducing recoil. I've tried a ton of them. I haven't tried everything, but I've tried a ton of them. And when you're running a very, very light rifle in a competition setting, you have to be able to see where you're hitting. And to be honest, I pretty much always leave the triple pull on this gun when I'm shooting, because it is a heavy bipod. It's like 2.5 pounds. And without this rifle is pretty damn light. And so in a competition setting, it's just every little bit helps. But I remember there was one, it was one of the first matches I shot last year with this gun. It was before it was, because it was all before it was Cerakoted. And I was shooting a stage, and it was positional off of a stump. And the way that it was, I took the triple pull off, and we were shooting prairie dogs. It was a 2 prairie dog stage. One was at like 350 and one was at like 195. And I remember I shot the second prairie dog at 195, kneeling off a tree with this gun without the bipod on it, and I watched the impact. I mean, it's unbelievable how good these brakes are at taming recoil. And then when you put everything, and everything's balanced, and I was shocked. Like, it honestly shocked me how well you could see impacts with these things, or like in these, light setups. So moving back from there, I got a Proof 20-inch carbon fiber barrel. Absolutely great. It shoots well. The carbon fiber saved me some weight. Then it's chambered by West Texas Ordnance and 7 Saw. And I've said this before, I think the 7 Saw is the best short action standard bolt face cartridge that we can use right now. That's my opinion. And if you disagree, I'd love to hear it. But I've shot so much of this. I love this round. And the main thing, if you can control the recoil on a 6.5 Creedmoor very efficiently, you can shoot a 7 Saw very well. The recoil difference is negligible, but you're going to have a heavier bullet, a bigger diameter bullet, and a better BC bullet, and you're going to be running them faster. It's a win over everything, and I absolutely love it. That's why I run it in PRS, NRL. I hunt with it. It's fantastic. So in this one, I'm running. So my main competition load for this, I run the Hornady 166 A-tips at pretty much right at 2700. Depending on powder lot, it's like, but 2680 to 2700. So I'm still getting great speeds out of a 20-inch barrel. The 166s, I mean, I've got, a little bit more mass over guys shooting like 140s and 140s, and I'm running them faster, and I've got a better BC, and I will crush you in power factor at NRL matches. I've never lost with power factor. So, and for those that don't know what power factor is, so power factor, you have to have a minimum, essentially, cartridge performance in NRL. You have to hit 380,000 or higher, and it's your bullet weight times your velocity, and you have to hit 380,000 or higher. So it essentially locks you into technically a 25 Creed is the smallest that you can shoot, but really everybody shoots a 6.5 Creed. And so, most guys are in the 380 to 390,000 for power factor. I'm normally at like 440. And I generally, I always check just because more I think it's funny. But generally there's only ever like 1 to 4 people that have a higher power factor than me, and it's because they showed up with a Magnum. They're shooting a Psalm or a PRC or something like that, and so this power factor is a huge plus for it. Plus the ballistics are just top notch. So then again, got a switch lug on this one, and then this one, this is the Lone Peak Fusion titanium. And so went with the titanium again because I needed to get this as light as I possibly could. I went with the fusion. I really like actions that have integral rails and integral lugs. It's one less failure point in my mind, and it just makes everything a little simpler. And so that's generally why I go with the fusions. I will eventually. So, and I hate on all these, like ultralight rifles and shit because I think the capabilities of a slightly heavier rifle is so much better. I'm eventually, maybe next year, maybe in like a year and a half, but in the somewhat near future, I will build like an ultimate ultralight at some point, and we may try some things, but anyways, I needed this to be as light as I could. And still keep the features that I liked. So I went with the Fusion Titanium, and then like I said, this is the one I took to the NRL finale. It just kept ticking. Honestly, it was a little stupid. Then moving up again, Hawkins. These are the heavy tack rings. Again, I wanted the diving board and for my hand placement, shooting positional, and then again a Collis 328. The for a competition setting, it was either this or the 540, and I just went with this because it's a little lighter, a little smaller. But that field of view is huge in this type of competition where you're blind stages, finding targets, and you're on the clock. And if you forget a reference point or something like that, the field of view is so helpful. And then the glass clarity and color and contrast is I love it. And so like when you're like these, and it's the same as hunting, and this is why I like to hunt with these types of scopes versus like your typical, hunting style scopes, like the Swaro style scopes. Like they're good scopes. It's just for me personally, I think the capabilities of something like this far outweighs the extra weight that you carry around. Again, another 328. Then moving down, this is the MDT Hunt 26. So pretty much all carbon fiber chassis and magnesium. They call it the Hunt 26 because it weighs 26 ounces. For the standard version, I got the folder version. Again, functionality and capabilities outweighing the extra weight, in my opinion. So I got the folder. And so when I built this, Foundation didn't have their hybrid line, and so I was needing to find obviously that my cardistocks wouldn't work, so I needed to find something that fit, and I have thoroughly enjoyed this chassis. I had to do some tweak here. Tip: if you've got a Hunt 26, these screws here at the fore end that go into the main part of the chassis, Loctite them. I've had them come loose a few times, and I've had a few friends have them come loose. I saw a company, apparently someone makes like a block type thing that mounts right here that kind of strengthens this up because it is just a carbon fiber fore end. But since I've done that, I have not had any issues, and my friends that have done it haven't had any issues since then. But just so they have torque specs and they're on their website and ship it with their installation instructions. Just make sure they're torqued, and then I put a touch of blue Loctite on them, and it keeps it. I haven't had anything from there. And then this one is Cerakoted by West Texas Ordnance. This was my first rifle that I got Cerakoted, and I had seen a ton of their work, and I really liked what they did. And so I kind of told them, I was like, hey, this is kind of the vibe that I like and the colors. And so just see what you come up with. And this is what they came up with. And I love it. I think they did a freaking badass job. I love the red, and it's got the phalanx skull laser engraved here on the stock. And then I've got two bolts for this.
I forgot to change bolts when I put the barrel back on, but on my other one they laser engraved the phalanx skull on the back as well, and it's friggin' sick. Uh, But yeah, I love how this turned out. It definitely is eye catching when it's at a match. So then coming down from there, um, I put the vertical grip that for the Hunt 26 right here. It comes with a little bit more of a swept grip. Originally, I like I said, I much prefer vertical grips. Got that put on. It is adjustable forward and back, so I've got it shoved all the way forward for my stubby little fingers. And then I'm running. This is the Bix and Andy Tac Sport, yeah, Tac Sport Pro. This was before they did the Pro X, so this is what I had this in my PRS rifle, and then when they came out with the Pro X, I got one of those. Moved this over to this gun. I normally run it without a safety for all of my competition guns, but I took this hunting the other day, and so I threw a safety back on. But if you're asking why, I was in Oklahoma at a match where it was very dusty, very windy, and everybody's triggers were going down all day. And got on a stage, got down, went to fire, nothing, ran the bolt, nothing, ran it again, nothing, looking, couldn't figure it out. And I was like, and I looked at the RO, I was like, well, I guess my trigger died. Got a 0 for the stage and walked off and set my rifle down. And when I did it, I saw my freaking safety was flipped on my PRS rifle. I reached down, flipped it up, checked it. That's what it was. That pissed me off. And so I took the safeties off all my competition guns because we're not even allowed to. You can't, no mag, chamber flag all the time if you're not on the stage. So there's no safety concern. So I just take the safety off so I don't have to worry about it. But so again, so this was kind of the concept. I needed everything as light as possible for the gun so that I could run. Oh, and then I've got an MDT triple pull out here on the front. I can't believe I almost forgot that. That is one of the fun things about this rifle. These triple pulls, the capabilities literally are kind of stupid. Now, it is a giant tripod. It is kind of a pain in the ass if you're getting in and out of blinds. There is a video of me getting into a deer, like a pop-up blind at a match, and this thing got the best of me trying to get in, and it was very funny. There's video of me yelling and cussing at this thing trying to yank it in there. So like it is, they are big and cumbersome. Not so much so that like it's unusable by any means, but if you're like in blinds now, if you're hunting in blinds and stuff, you probably don't need something like this anyways. But the thing that's nice is so they move, you can fold them up and down like a normal bipod, but then they also move in and out and then extend. And the triple pull has 3 leg sections. And so it extends up to 36 inches tall. And so I can take a kneeling tripod rear shot off my bipod anywhere. And it just makes it really nice to be able to get up and out of grass or something if I need to. And so putting, the heavy bipod, the heavier scope, the heavy muzzle brake, all that stuff, the heavy rings, I needed the rifle to go very, and I think the Bear rifle's like just over 5 pounds or something like that. It's crazy light. And then honestly, when I run this without the triple pull and just like an Atlas on it, it's a badass little light, compact little hunting setup, and I really like it. That's this setup, and then we'll kind of start going into like the theory and concepts behind like the different parts and stuff like that. Okay. So that's so hopefully that kind of helps explain like, okay, this is what I'm going to use it for. So this is the way I'm going to start tackling things, and so that kind of helps with overall weight of the rifle, which, helps me select components and barrel lengths and cartridge, and then what I'm going to use it for, cartridge selection, bullet selection, barrel length, and all that coming into play and being able to, get that all figured out. So, but now I kind of want to break down like how I look at like the different components and everything. And like I said, so guys, if you're not into custom rifles and you're running factory rifles, but like you're shopping for a new gun or you want to shop for one and maybe change parts out or something like that, this is kind of how, the thought process and like how I go through everything. So actions. So the NRL setup is a titanium. My 300 Norma that's almost done, that one is a titanium. Everything else is a stainless. In my opinion, take it for what it's worth. I don't think the titanium actions are worth it or worth the extra money until you're like counting every ounce. You have to get some weight out. Otherwise, in my mind, it's not worth the extra money. And they're a couple $100. It's not like it's
extravagant or anything like that. But and then the stainless actions in reality are going to last longer. You know, you can gall or wear out the lugs on titaniums eventually, or if you get like bad overpressure or something like that. So if you want a titanium, I mean they're freaking cool, and I like to tell people I collect exotic metals, titanium, magnesium, stuff like that. So I mean, but they are cool. But in my opinion, I think unless you're really truly counting ounces and needing to save weight, that I would personally just go with the stainless. And then, like I said, I prefer stuff with an integral rail and an integral lug. The one thing I don't mind getting away from if I need to is I can ditch the integral rail. I like the Hawkins long range hybrid rings. They mount directly to your scope without the need for a rail and have a built in 20 MOA cant. So it accomplishes everything that I need without, and then it's so the deal with it not having an integral rail is then you've got to screw a rail on and then screw your rings to the rail, and it's just one more thing that's not permanent. And then so being able to go straight from the rings to the action, I think, is a really cool solution to that. And so if I go like a round body action with no rail, like that's the setup I would go. And that's probably what I'll try and do when I go like with the ultralight. I'll probably do like a razor, like a titanium razor, and then do like the Hawkins ultralight hybrids or like the long range hybrids. I think that would be cool. So that's kind of my thought on actions. And then 60 and 90 degree. Now there's like Impact has the 75, and I think there's one or two other people doing the 75s now. In my mind, I don't think it really matters. Everything I have is a 90. I had an AI that I just sold earlier this year. That's a 60. I loved it. It was cool. I did like that action. I just don't think in my mind I don't really think they're faster. I mean they if you were to truly put a ton of time into it, you could potentially maybe run a 60 faster than a 90, but if you also put that much work into running a 90 fast, you could just run a 90 fast. So and then 60s they take more anything less than a 90, it takes more effort on the bolt open to overcome the caulking piece and everything like that. And since you're traveling a shorter distance, it's more energy over a shorter distance, so it requires more effort to raise that. And so it can, depending on the action or whatever, it can cause enough effort to lift that handle to cant your rifle. And we're splitting hairs, and it's not that big a deal. Like if someone handed me a 60, it's not like oh my god, I can't run a 60. I just don't think it really matters. If you like a 60, you run a 60. You like a 90, you run a 90. I prefer a 90. Uh, like the 75s that are out, it seems like they're like, I know Impact is selling a shit ton of the 75s, and kind of the thought process is it's a shorter throw without without that extra cam over. And I think they pretty much hit the mark on it. I mean, there's a little bit more. I mean, it is what it is. You're gonna have more with a shorter throw, but I do think it's maybe kind of the best of both worlds if you want. But in my mind, it just doesn't really matter. Then okay, barrels. It's a little bit you kind of got to look into some stuff. Like a lot of times I'll go to like Bartland's website or CRB's website or Proof's website or something like that, and they'll generally have pretty good like weight specs for like different profiles and stuff like that. If you need to see how much of a weight difference there is between different profiles and stuff like that. But the main thing, the easiest one to talk about is stainless versus carbon fiber. I don't have a problem with carbon fiber barrels. I'm gonna speak in generalities. I think it is easier for there to be a problem with a carbon fiber barrel than a stainless barrel because there's more things going on. But all of the proofs I've ever had, the only carbon fiber barrels I've had are proofs, and all of them have shot very well. But the downside to carbon fiber is they get hot very quickly. When barrels get hot, your groups can open up and get erratic, and that's not good, obviously. So steel barrels will handle that a lot easier. So something to keep in mind, if you didn't know that, you can't just shoot the shit out of your barrels. They will get hot, they will start to open up, but that will definitely happen with carbon fiber. And so like I was talking with one of my buddies, a very knowledgeable guy, a very good shooter, but he got his first carbon barrel and he was out shooting, and it was also a seven saw, I think. But he was like, man, I'm having some weird like wandering, like my zero's moving around a little bit, and I was asking him, I was like, well, how much are you shooting? And he's like, I mean, like I'll shoot
8 to 10 rounds at a time. Like, okay, like I do that too. I'm like, but how much, how much are you letting it cool off? And that was the problem is he wasn't letting it cool off enough. And like he was letting it cool, but not enough to come all the way back down. And so then that's where he was getting like kind of zero shifts. And I was like, okay, let's just try something. I was like, and it was in the middle of summer. So go start your truck, turn your AC on, go throw your rifle in there for like 7 or 8 minutes and then pull it back out and shoot it and see what it does. And he did, and it was perfect. So it was just overheating. So that's something to keep in mind. That is the biggest downside to carbon barrels. Now, if you're just hunting, it doesn't matter. You may shoot one, two, three shots, something like that. It's really not going to matter. But like if you're getting into like if you take it to the range or you're practicing or you're doing like NRL hunter or something like that, and you're getting into bigger shot strings, it can definitely affect things. Like that NRL Open Light, that is a Sendero light. So I mean it is a lighter profile than the Sendero. And I've never had any issues running 8 shot stages in NRL Hunter. And it does great. So that's kind of the pros and cons to stainless versus carbon. Now, the other thing I mentioned is generally rifles are going to be butt heavy and the stocks and like where the scope and everything sits. In general, it makes rifles butt heavy. And so being able to get weight out front helps them balance out a lot better. And doing that with a stainless barrel is much easier. It's just going to put a little more weight out front. And that is one thing. And so when a rifle is balanced, you're going to be able to shoot it positionally a lot easier, and it's going to track better through the recoil process or the recoil impulse, and being able to see things easier. And so I that is a big plus. And so where on like PRS rifles, like I run straight 125s on all of my PRS setups now, and it just throws everything. And I mean those are 10-pound barrels, but it puts everything way out at the front and achieves that goal. So that's something. And cost, you're 450 to $500 for a stainless barrel blank, and you're $800 to $900 for a carbon fiber blank. So depending, and now that is something to keep in mind. If you shoot enough to shoot out a barrel, that is, I generally won't do carbon barrels on stuff that I know I'm going to shoot out really fast, because I shoot too much, and I already spent an absorbent amount on barrels. So them going out and costing twice as much just cuz is a little harder to swallow. But when if it doesn't really matter, it's great. And if you have to have the weight savings, in my mind, they are absolutely worth it. It just I have to have the justification for the weight savings to need to go to a carbon barrel, in my opinion. So then, going into profiles, to be honest, I don't think it matters all that much. I kind of look for just certain characteristics in it. So like with this, I said with the CRB hunter profiles, I just think it's a good overall profile. Like the shank isn't, overly long, but then the muzzle diameter is still large enough. And that is something to keep in mind. Like I run brakes or suppressors on everything, and so being able to keep a large enough shoulder for secure mounting, you need to keep that in mind. So that's really the only thing I kind of have to take into consideration when I'm trying to go light for steel barrels. And then when you go up, like, and then on the opposite end for PRS, there's a lot of guys that'll run like MTUs or like comp contours that finish at like a 1 to 1 1, something like that. And then there's straight 125s. In my opinion, I just like to go straight 125s. They're all the way heavy. We all end up putting weight on the front anyways. So it's just instead of having to buy, one, two, three, four, $500 worth of weights, I can just put a bunch of weight in the end of my barrel, and my barrel doesn't cost any different, and it's all out there. A little hack for you if you haven't thought of it that way. So then triggers. So single stage and two stage. Honestly, I think it's totally a personal preference. And maybe I'm an idiot, but I like to run single stages in my bolt guns, and I like to run two stages in my ARs. I don't know why. It just I like it that way. So, but in all my bolt guns, I run single stages. I now run Bixes in pretty much everything, but I have a bunch of trigger techs as well, and and a bunch of, well, yeah. I forgot to mention on the 25/7, the 25/7 has a trigger tech diamond. So like I still have a bunch of trigger techs, and I still really like them. I just personally like the Bix and Andes. The Tac Sport Pro X is amazing, and I forgot to mention I'm running the Gator shoe on that open light setup, and then like all my new fixes, I'm running the Gator shoe. It's a curved trigger shoe, and then the shoe is a wider shoe, so there's just more surface area. And then it's called a Gator because it's got a very heavy texture, like
stippling or like knurling on it. It's kind of like gator scales. And so and because I run such a light trigger, I like having all of that feedback on the pad of my finger, being able to feel that. And just kind of as I feel like, the points come into the pad and everything, it's a lot of good feedback. So I love that gator shoe, but there's nothing wrong with two stages. A lot of guys like them. I just come up and in my shot process, I know how much pressure I can put on my trigger without it going off. And I'll essentially just come up, touch it, and start applying pressure. Where guys, some guys just like to have that wall and the take up as part of their process. And so they'll come in, touch the trigger, come back to that wall, and then start applying pressure. I don't think it really matters. Do what you want to do. And I will say all of my trigger techs are flat shoes. There's something I do prefer the flat shoe with the trigger techs. And then for the Bixes, I do like the gator shoe. I don't know. I guess I'm just weird that way. I don't but trigger shoes, I mean, it's a personal preference. Okay, then chassis versus stocks. And this is where I think a lot of people love to go round and round. And like I said, I think it comes down to the way I would look at it first is, are you a stock guy or are you a chassis guy? Which kind of and if you don't know, which features in a stock, or a platform do you like? So in general, chassis are going to be the most adjustable thing, the easiest and the quickest. And the downside is, in general, especially in like competition and stuff like that, you got to buy a bunch of extra weights and other things. And so they do end up, you got some extra costs and some things like that. And then they can get very cold when it's cold outside. So like if you're hunting with a chassis or like you're shooting a match and it's cold or something, it's like picking up an ice block. It is what it is. I mean, there's, like I said, trade-offs. There's good and bad to everything. But in general, it's very easy to adjust and manipulate a chassis to get it set up exactly how you want it and fit you very, very easily. Um, and they're great that way. I've actually got a customer's rifle in right now with the new MPA chassis, and mess with them. This is kind of the first time shooting and really messing with it, and I think they're pretty slick. I was pretty impressed. Kind of just, and it's all just little nuance changes, but I like them. I think they did a good job. But anyways, and then but with stocks, there's trade offs. I tend to like the way they fit and feel a little better, and then the recoil impulse is going to be different. And then with the foundations, with the micarta, you kind of get that dead feeling. And so I think it's going to be what you're really looking for out of that. So like I said, with this open light setup, foundation at the time didn't have these light stocks, so I needed something light, and I love that folder. And I think it's a very strong folding mechanism. It locks up very, very well. And so like that's where you got to find, I think, the features that fit that specific use case that way you're putting it towards. But like I said, in general, I'm a stock guy, and I love these foundations. And now, with these modern machining and materials and stuff that these stock companies are coming out, it's badass. So that's there are true trade-offs between everything, but it's you got to determine what you're really needing for it. Then bottom metal, like I said, BDL, Oberndorf style bottom metals, I don't ever really run. They definitely have their place. If you just need weight savings and very sleek, it's tough to beat. Or if you're going to run, like I said, for the true hunter style rifles, I run the Hawkins Hunter bottom metals with the Hunter mags. And I think I've only got a couple that even have that. I run AICS mags on just about everything, just because I'm a competition junkie, and I have a few grand in freaking AICS mags, so I'd run them and everything. So yeah, that's the main thing. Like I run Hawkins bottom metals on everything. They just lock. I mean, it just locks up good tolerances and everything like that. Then scopes, God, that's a whole nother rabbit hole to try and to go through. The one thing first focal plane is a must for me. I think I own one second focal plane that's a 1:6, no, 1:10. And like second focal plane definitely has its place, but for me in competition, like bolt gun is just, I'm gonna get a first focal plane on everything. And so for those that don't know,
So in a first focal plane, when you zoom in and out in your scope, the reticle is going to appear to shrink and grow with the magnification, where on a second focal plane, it just stays the same and the picture magnifies, what you're looking at magnifies as you zoom in and out. And so, the pros and cons to that, where on a second focal plane, when you zoom all the way down and if you're on an LPVO like 1x or in something like this where you're 3 4 5 6x, you still have a big full reticle to aim with, where the downside to a first focal plane, and depending on the reticle and the manufacturer and some things like that, if you zoom all the way out, that reticle can essentially get too small that it's not useful anymore. um and it can become hard to use. And so that's where, if you're going to have, a lot of low magnification things or something like that, a second focal plane can help in that, where what we're doing, for the most part, like I rarely ever come down that much, and or like the reticles and manufacturers that I like to use, their reticles are still very usable in the magnification ranges that I use. So, but then with the big reason I like first focal plane is, so on a second focal plane, your reticle subtensions are only accurate at a certain magnification level, and that's generally the highest magnification. So you can just crank it and it hits set spot and it's locked in. If it's not the top magnification, they'll generally have some kind of indicator on the magnification ring so that that's where it's at. But then in my mind, if you're not exactly at that, if you're, if it say it's like 16 is where it's accurate, well, you could very easily be at 15.9 or 16.1, or so it just be off a little bit. And when you're actually using those subtensions to measure things, they need to be accurate. It'd be like using a tape measure when it's only right half the time. So that's where I I'm gonna use a first focal plane, because I need all of these subtensions to always be accurate to be able for being able to run. Oh man, busy delivery day, and I got my freaking PRS gun back. It's been in freaking Pennsylvania for a couple months. I sent it over for one of the UK guys to shoot at the finale. I didn't need it back. I'm not shooting a PRS match right now, but glad to have it back. It just came back. The main thing, I'm glad to have my freaking 540 back, because I'd gotten to use and stuff, but I've been like waiting for like my own to come in, and got it in, got this freaking thing mounted and leveled and zeroed and shipped it off. And I haven't, he got to use it before I did. But anyways, so on these first focal plane scopes, so being able to hold wind, and living out in West Texas, I always have to hold wind. And so being those subtensions always being accurate at any magnification range. So like we've all been there, you say you're on a target or an animal or something like that, and then it moves or you lose it, and you grab your mag ring, zoom out, find him, zoom back in. Well, then most of us aren't calculated on that throw, and so just knowing that those measurements are always accurate is a must for me. And then same thing, if you need to hold over or under or something like that, those subtensions above and below are also accurate. So for me, in a precision rifle setup, it's a first focal plane. You got to do it. So then getting into a little bit more like theory things, I guess, and like testing. So, getting a well balanced rifle is great. It shoots so much easier. It recoils better, and then just being able to get on target, move around, stuff like that, much easier. And so in a competition setup, it's a must, because we're always shooting positionally. We're up and down off of different things, different props. It's just you've got to do it, and especially in PRS. And that's where chassis systems and like the new Foundation Samson and these types of things, that's why there's so much weights on them, and being able to manipulate them and stuff like that. So like I'm not going to get it out right now, but like so in my Samson, like when they came out, it's I waited a little bit after they came out to get this new PRS rifle built. But seeing like friends and stuff that were running fully weighted Samsons with all the brass weights in them, with a 26-inch straight 125, and then all the standard everything else that a PRS rifle has. Pretty much all of them were weighing like exactly at 30 pounds, which is of a rifle. I mean, that's freaking heavy. And I kind of was, and I knew moving to the Samson that the overall weight of the rifle was most likely going to go up, and I was that's what I wanted, but I still wanted it to be balanced well. but I didn't want to hit that 30-pound mark. So when I got mine in, I did things a little different. So I'm running all of the brass weights in it except the Arca rail. I'm running the aluminum Arca rail. And so in the new Samsons, the Arca rails are tanks. And so you got the full length Arca rail, and then it's machined instead of having the Anschutz rail that they normally have. It's got the ledge up on top that fits into the stock that fits in really well. And so it's one big unit, and the aluminum rail I believe weighs like a pound. It's like a pound, pound and a half, and the aluminum's like 3.5 pounds. It's a big weight difference, and so I knew if I did all the brass weights but minus the rail and did the aluminum rail, I would save 2.5 pounds. And so threw all the weight in, threw it on a deal to balance it, and everything was balanced exactly where it was at. And it's at like right at it's like just under 28 pounds. And that was good. Just when, and I mean, that's still very, very heavy. But when you start getting into 30 plus, and like I'm a big guy and I have long arms, so I've got pretty good leverage. Like if I start getting past like 27, 28 pounds, it gets hard for me to be able to one arm like move. And I mean, and it's still, I can't really do it from like when it's laying flat on something. I still kind of need to grab it, my offhand and help, but I can manipulate it this way. But when you get into like 30 plus, it starts getting, a lot of leverage out here. And then it's also just a lot of weight to be able to move and move quickly and efficiently. But anyways, but the finding that balance is great. Now on a hunting rifle, it gets a lot harder because we're focusing more on like saving weight, and it gets a little harder to put weight in certain places. But that's where like, a steel barrel is going to put a little more weight out front. And so, and then pro tip, everyone kind of talks about like where the balance point needs to be. Like some people say it's directly in front of the magwell, some people say it's an inch in front of it, some people say it's 4 inches in front of it. The balance point, so I don't have one of my bags here with me, so but you've seen my WeBad shooting bags. Okay, it's shaped like a U, and when you set it over something, it sits like this. Well, they have different sizes of bags, and it's not just WeBad, Armageddon gear, Game Changers, whatever. But all these shooting bags, they've got different sizes, and depending on what size you get and or the manufacturer, the width of the amount of bag that is between your magazine or your barricade stop and that barricade, like where the divide in the bag is going to be different depending on what size it is. And so your balance point needs to be the distance from it's half your bag, because that's going to be where the rifle is sitting. So if you're running one of these, call it, say, this like little 22 saw that's light, and I'm running like a WeBad micro mini tater tot that's this big, I'm going to want my balance point about that far in front of the magwell because I'm running a really small bag. Where on my PRS rifle, I run a full size tater tot, and the bag's about this big, and it's about 4 inches in front of the magwell because I'm physically running a bigger bag. And when the bag is on a barricade, that point that it's sitting on is physically further out from the magwell. So that's how I like to determine where my balance point is going to be, and then you can start manipulating your weight around that point. Like I said, with a hunting rifle, it's a lot harder to get set up. That is one thing I still don't see a lot of hunting rifles with bipods on them. I think if I can shoot prone, I'm gonna get prone because it's the most stable thing. And being honest, most shooters, especially like the average hunter that isn't going out and practicing or trying out stuff like NRL and getting out and shooting positionally, can't shoot position to save their life. And so then you go out and go on a hunt and don't take a bipod, and you just take your backpack off and use your backpack as a rest. And like, yeah, it's pretty good, but you never shoot positionally. So like, why would you not throw a bipod on it? And I'm a very, very good shooter, and I would still prefer to go a bipod and bag and get stable. So that gets you some capabilities. And then it also puts a little more weight out front if you're going to be shooting positional or something like that. So you can play around with balance a little bit and see what you end up liking. Some like I will say, like on my PRS rifle, I do like a hair little bit more weight forward, so that when it recoils, obviously recoil, we're going to have muzzle rise, and we're going to have the rifle tracking back as well. If you got it just a little bit more weight forward, it's going to be when the muzzle comes up, it's going to fight that just a hair more. So it's going to want to track straight back more versus rising, so that you can kind of manipulate it a little bit depending on what you want to do. Then really from there, it's gonna be a lot of like personal preferences and stuff. The last thing I guess I would say I'll talk on is cartridge selection. Like I said, determining the use case is going to be the number one thing, but then being able to use your bullet selection, barrel length, and cartridge selection all together as a system to effectively choose your bullets, like what speed your bullet is going to be going at, is how I like to approach things. And so like, and I get so and I deal with it with a bunch of my friends that all, that they load their own stuff, or guys that are messing around with different things, and like, just I want, I wish this was at 2,700 feet per second. I can't get there. Or or like they'll just try and keep putting more powder in it, or they'll get a dasher and they'll want it to run at 2875, but it shoots better at 2840, or what. There will be different things where like guys are trying to manipulate loads and different things like that to hit certain speeds. But I feel the much better and efficient way that's going to get you better results is using your bullet selection, barrel length, and cartridge selection to determine that, and then letting it shoot good like it wants to, and then using everything else to manipulate that. So like if I wanted to, like, so we're gonna make I had a guy ask me about this a couple weeks ago. So say you wanted you wanted to use a 30 cal hunting, like you're gonna build a 30 cal hunting setup, and you wanted it to run 2,800 feet per second. Okay. With and say you have a bullet picked out, you're going to run 215 hybrid. Let's call it that. So then, so if you're going to run a 215 hybrid at 2,800 feet per second and a 308, you're going to have a pretty long barrel and probably get into some very interesting things to get it to run at that speed. Or you can run it in a 300 Win Mag, or I wouldn't say 300 for 300 PRC. We'll call it 300 PRC, and you could do that a lot easier. You could do it very easy with a much shorter barrel. Or say like if you needed it to be that speed, but you for whatever reason you need it to be stupid short too, then you could go to like a 300 Norma, and so you start you're determining what you're going to do. Like, I'm going to use it to hunt, and then I need this bullet to go this fast, and then you can select everything else around that. So it's much easier to manipulate things that way in the front end. Like you're creating the setup for that and then optimizing around it. And so like, for like my archery guys, like when you're setting up, your arrows, everyone's gonna there's a reason everyone's ending up in these like 420 to like 460 grain arrows, because it's like you're optimizing your weight and speed to be able to get the most out of your setup. And this is where I feel I definitely feel like the archery world has a lot better grasp on things than the rifle world, and understanding trade-offs and what does what, and if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna give up this, but I'm okay with it. But anyways, so just using that and creating an appropriate barrel length with an appropriate cartridge with an appropriate bullet to do what you need it to do to hit those speeds and accomplish those things. So anyways, but so hopefully that helps, and that is a way more like in-depth, a little more technical overview on like how I like to approach building a new rifle. As I said, been helping a lot of people out over the last, recently getting new rifles set up. I've been building new rifles, getting things changed up. So I like it. I think it's fun. I call it Legos for adults. And we get to mix and match parts and build way cooler things than you can with Legos. So guys, thank y'all so much for listening. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the feedback. It seems like every day I'm getting a message or email or text or something from somebody of asking a question from the show, or encouraging words saying keep it up, or I love the show. So like, sincerely thank y'all. I really appreciate it. I've been putting a ton of work in. There's an insane amount of stuff coming for next year. I'm getting a whole laundry list of guests lined up, more content, more stuff, more builds. I'm amped. There's a lot of stuff coming. So if there's stuff that you would like to see, definitely let me know. Go check me out on Instagram. It's the Mike Burtis. You guys have my page is growing. And so we just crossed 900 followers. I'm really wanting to hit 1,000 as quick as we can.
please, so go follow me over there. I've really been working on like photography and really just been trying to post better stuff. And then check out the show's Instagram, Red, White, and Moose on Instagram as well. Guys, thank y'all so much. I really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you to the show partners, Alpha, Lone Peak, Collis Foundation, Hawkins, WTO, Raven Rifles, and Botnia. I love you guys. Enjoy your Christmas. Spend some time with your loved ones. God bless you guys. I'll see you next week.